This is a special episode of Meet My Business, celebrating the 5-year birthday in 2026 of Baird Media.
My name is Ethan Baird. I'm the production director and co-founder of Baird Media.
And I am Hendrik. I am also a co-founder and I am the content director.
And my dad.
And my son.
So what are we doing here today?
We are talking about the history of Baird Media as well as the future of what we are planning to do in the years to come.
Yeah, because this has been a long journey coming. It's actually been, I think, pretty much a decade of us working together, if you think about it, possibly even longer.
It's a decade and a half, actually, if you look all the way back, I think.
Yeah. I mean, the first time we worked together was GaySay Radio, the internet radio station that we ran. But it does actually stretch quite a bit further before that, because for me, my first introduction to media production in the first place was messing around on your MacBook at Opa 80's house back when I was like 13 or whatever, making weird home movies. So it really has been a long time coming.
So look, I mean, we're a very creative family. Your mother's a drama teacher, Kyla's a ballet dancer, Caitlin is an artist and cuts men's hair. You are the production expert and me just creative dumping ground, all this stuff that comes out of me, and I really can't stop it sometimes. We've got a history of creativity in our family. Here we are today, 5 years in with Baird Media.
Yeah, it's kind of surreal actually to be at this point. We've, I think, technically done Baird Media longer than we did GaySay Radio, if we consider that.
Oh, wow.
Because I think 2016 is when that kind of kicked off, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I left there in 2020, I think.
Yeah. In
2019 I left.
End of 2019.
Yeah. I mean, that was a real good training ground. GaySay Radio was an online radio station. We found two people who were looking for volunteers, and we said, we'll go volunteer once a week when they do a broadcast. And then 3 weeks later, it moved into my house and it took over our lives from 6 a.m. The first show started till 10 at night with 30 volunteers in and out the whole time. It was a massive learning curve for both of us.
We literally made the news multiple times. Mm-hmm. I still remember Gay Radio Station for City, that poster that I stole off the side of the road the one day. You banned a hate pastor from entering the country. Like, we did pretty big things with GaySay Radio, I feel like.
Yeah, so we did. It was a crash course in radio. I mean, you'd been working in student radio up to that point.
Yeah, so Tux FM was kind of my initial training ground for, like, working in media production and working in radio and audio specifically. I had been the audio production unit leader is what they called it, basically the manager of that department. I also managed the technical and the music departments at various points. That was pretty much what university became for me, is that I thought I was going to be a computer programmer, and then I ended up just doing radio all the time and finding that way more interesting. So when we initially heard about what was then called GaySay FM, a weekly broadcast, we were both like, well, we both know kind of something about this. We can probably do something bigger than what's already being done. So it is like, with my radio experience, your arts and culture, media background, we were just like, okay, let's run with this.
And then we just took it over.
We just took the whole thing over.
At which point in that journey did you start editing podcasts?
I think it was 2017, maybe the second or third year, let's say the second or third year perhaps of GaySay Radio. I wanted to get some extra income in, so I made a website and started advertising my services as a podcast editor and producer. And then I managed to just randomly land a couple of like fairly consistent clients, which we actually still work with today, interestingly. But so it was around about then that I started editing just podcast after podcast after podcast. It was when our time at GaySay Radio eventually ended that I then went way more into editing podcasts, because that was my main income stream at the time. But it was kind of during GaySay Radio, and then towards the end, it kind of really ramped up.
Yeah, and when I came back from Cape Town, I worked at an old age dementia center for a while before finding my feet as a ghostwriter. And it was in that period in COVID, wasn't it, when we started talking about, we worked so well together, we were such a great team, and we complemented each other so well at GaySay Radio. Is there something that we could do together that would build on that, and that would be ours, that would not be somebody else's company that we could run.
And the other aspect of that was we realized during our time at KC Radio that, in our opinion, internet radio is a very difficult market and doesn't really seem to have that much of a future in South Africa, especially for an internet-only broadcast. If you have an FM station and an internet radio station, that's maybe a bit different. But I mean, even you did some research during the time and figured out maybe the money isn't really here in internet radio.
A lot of people said to us that, we were like, oh, this is the next big thing. We're going to make a huge success of this. And many people in the industry said, no, there's no real future. And it was only when I did my master's at WITS, master's in media and journalism, and researching internet radio that I realized this is not where the action is.
Yeah, because internet radio, for me, kind of defeats what makes internet media interesting. It kind of takes away from the fact that you can download it on demand, listen to it when you want, watch it when you want. It takes away that freedom. If you're kind of restricting yourself to a 24/7 broadcast that you have to tune into, like on FM, how is that actually leveraging what makes the internet interesting and useful for media? So podcasting then seemed to be the natural evolution of that, because we were still very audio focused. We still loved audio storytelling, audio production, all of these things, voiceovers, narration, all of the stuff was really a major part of what we were doing. We realized podcasting seems to be where the real action actually is.
And at the same time, I was doing my best to revitalize my hypnosis practice and started a podcast for that. And that really drew me into podcasting. And then here we are 5 years later. But where we started is not where we are today. What was our original service offering?
So that was very, very interesting, because I'll say in 2021, that's when we officially started Baird Media. Mid-June is when it was registered, but somewhere before that in the year we had begun. And we ultimately just thought of it as content marketing company with like a podcast first approach. I remember that being something on a website landing page at some point.
And the first book I wrote was all about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So podcasting was always a part of the essence of all of this, but at the time we would just do anything for anybody. Like if somebody wanted a website designed, if somebody wanted a blog written or a book written or anything that we had any skill in, we would just do it, because you're a new company, you want to get any business, you don't say no to business. And then what happened was we realized the kind of things we don't actually want to do, the kind of promises we don't want to make to clients, the kind of work that is not fulfilling for us, it's not engaging for us. And ultimately, we had to really rethink and whittle down over time what it is that we're actually doing.
So, Ethan, in your opinion, what was the biggest change we made from 15th of June 2021 to where we are today?
The big shift was thinking about us as this broad content marketing company that's kind of everything for everybody, and really narrowing down to, we teach people how to produce podcasts and we make podcasts. Now, that is actually way too big in scope still, we think, because making a podcast could mean very many things. And we're still in the process of whittling that down even further. But it was that real shift from, okay, what are our strengths? We know how to teach people. We're good at communicating that. We enjoy helping people get started. There's a lot of new podcasters who don't know what they're doing, and we can genuinely help. And we like doing the production side. We like creating and organizing a big production from start to finish. But we also just like receiving an edit, putting it out, sending it back to the client, that kind of work. We realized that things like studios weren't something that we were necessarily interested in doing ourselves. We have great partners like Solid Gold that we're currently working with. We're recording this right now, that we can refer people to. So we didn't feel like we had to be in that space. We figured out the things that we're really good at and tried to focus more on that.
And also building on past skill sets. I come from a drama background. I organized a massive developmental arts festival. So the organizational side of producing a podcast like Stripped, which we'll talk about in a moment, that really comes naturally to me because I know how to do these things. I know how to get people in a room and rehearse them, from drama, all those sort of things. to structure a production, all the components of it, the casting, the scripting, the sound edit, all those sort of things fits well into my skill set. And I think it's served us well up to this point.
Absolutely. One thing that's been interesting, though, is the fact that we're a family. Like, this is literally a family business. And not in the way that you usually think about a family business. Like, one of my really close friends, he works at his dad's like paint contractor, and that's the family business. The family business had existed, and he then became a part of it. We did it like the complete other way around. We decided together that we were going to start a business together as 50-50 partners. But ultimately, it's still family that we're working with. So, I mean, what's it like working with your son?
I find it really enriching. You have so many skills that I don't have, and you have your own unique outlook on life, which is vastly different to mine. I always say you're the conservative one, and I'm the permissive one, and somewhere in the middle, I pull you up and you bring me back to earth. So I think we complement each other very well. Remember in Gazer Radio days, whenever something technically would go wrong, you would hear me shouting down the passage, Ethan! And I sometimes do that, but you're too far away to answer now. I do think there's a very complementary aspect to our relationship now, that we don't bring any personal things really into it. While at the same time, we always end a call and a meeting with, thank you very much, I love you, goodbye. And I'm not sure how many business partners do that, that are not involved in that way. Although we did have somebody ask, how did you two meet? I said, well, the day he was born, his mother showed him to me. So what is the challenge of working with me?
Like you say, we are very different people in the way we approach many things in life. I think you have a way higher risk tolerance than I do, for example. You're more willing to try things. So what kind of paralleling what you said, I'm the kind of person who's can be very slow to take action. I have to read. I remember my mom says ponder. I'm also someone who has to ponder, sometimes to my detriment. And I feel like you have like what seems like sometimes limitless energy and limitless momentum that then I can then help guide and structure and help figure out and implement. And I think that's what I really like about the way we work together, is that you have the vision typically, and I can help getting us to that vision. So on that front, I really enjoy it. I think it is interesting sometimes working with your dad, but I think we've done it now for so long that we really can compartmentalize. Like, we'll have a meeting where it's like an hour of solid work stuff, and then we will spend the last 5 minutes, oh yes, Carl called yesterday and he's or your mother is going to come up. Like, we'll have those conversations, but it feels completely separate. It, and even when the conversation weaves back and forth, it still feels separate enough. It's weird. I don't know. I don't think many fathers and sons can actually do that. I don't think that that's a relationship that people can typically have, because I will say part of what both my parents did was that you always instilled into us that you can come to us with anything. Anything. There's nothing you can't come to us with. Rather just tell the truth and say it. So I feel like for that reason, I don't have that thing of like, ooh, I'm scared to voice my ... because he's going to... No, if I think that's a bad idea, I'm going to be like, I think that's a bad idea and this is why. And you're welcome to say, no, I think this is a good idea and this is why. And that's healthy. I think that's what you need to... I can't just be a yes man because I'm your son, you know?
No, there's a lot of pushback sometimes.
Yeah.
And we've had some...
full-on disagreements about
this. And then it's like, okay, you don't like what I'm doing, so suggest something else then.
Absolutely. And I think that's healthy debate in a business. I think if there's an environment where you can't have that, that's when you're just going to stagnate, because then you live in a, culture of fear or something where you can't express yourself. So I think that's what serves us well, is that I don't think there's ever been a time where it's like, oh, I'm scared to tell this person this thing about what I think about the company or where we're at or what we're doing.
What do you think about the idea that I'm back at university?
It's exciting. It's clearly very overwhelming. It's because, so for reference, my wife, as you know, is also an academic, and I've seen what that means to write a dissertation, to write a thesis, to do all that stuff, and it's a gigantic amount of work. But ultimately, I feel like it's the next logical step in this evolution that we've gone on. If you had decided to go to university and study something completely unrelated to Baird Media or to what we're doing, I would have been like, okay, great, have fun, but it's a tangent. Whereas I think what you're studying is like the number one question that we are asked.
And the question we have.
About podcasting, especially in South Africa. So it serves so many functions that I think it can only be good.
When we were at Gazer Radio and I was doing the masters, I felt like the company had gone off track because I'd lost my momentum in the company and I was putting all my effort into the masters. And then the people I was doing it really for, the CEO and the majority shareholders, were not interested at all in the outcomes of that research and were not interested in implementing any of the recommendations into the company. So I felt I had done all this work for nothing and it had no real worth at the end. Whereas I think this study I'm doing at the moment, like you say, it's a very pertinent question we're looking at, which is how to make money. How do people make money off podcasts in South Africa? And how does it differ from what the Americans or the global north, as we call it, do it? And where are the opportunities? This feeds directly into what our company does. And while there is a danger of taking the effort or the energy away from the day-to-day running, I do think this is what will set us apart in the future. And we'll talk about the future a little bit later. But we are the only company that I know of in this country that does podcasting that is really based on actual research. And I mean, that research will still take a year to come out, and we'll probably have a special broadcast around that. But it will directly serve not only our company, but the broader podcasting community in South Africa, the Guild and so on, which we're very passionate about. So I'm going to ask you in public here, please keep me on track. And if I if I lose focus, to just rein me back in again, please.
Yeah. No, let me say it's probably not the doctorate that's going to be causing that. It's the list of other people.
List of other things like yes, I say yes to everything. So what are you most proud of that happened in the past 5 years?
The fact that we got to be the judges on the South African Podcast Guild's first ever podcasting awards was a really big deal for me. I was also made part of the advisory board, which also a huge deal. But we went from being a random family production company to what people in the podcast industry locally call the Bairds. Like, we're a known entity. We're a known quantity in the podcast sphere locally. We come up in conversation. We've had people who have been referred to from other conversations they've had with artists in the room. And I think that level of elevation that had happened over the last couple of years, for me, I'm very proud.
It was so interesting. As I walked into the studio this morning, I was introduced to a lady and she said, "Oh, I follow you on LinkedIn." I said, "Why?" She says, "Because you're the podcast guru." Yeah, okay.
Yes.
I'll take that. Stripped is the thing that I'm most proud of. It is something I love doing, telling stories through the medium of drama. And I've always wanted to write. I go to the theater and I'm so inspired. I want to write a play. And they're like, it's going to be so expensive to produce it. And I can write something and do it myself. And even in a monologue form like we did for Blood in the Dust, I can make drama for next to nothing, as opposed to theater or TV or movies, which the budgets are ridiculous. We can do things for almost next to nothing here and still make an impact in that space, which is very niche and very specialized and really satisfying for me.
Yeah. I really feel like it's truly one of the production we've made that sets us apart entirely from
from what everybody else does.
Absolutely.
Sure.
So what do we do now? What do we even do now?
Everything podcasting. That is the short, sweet answer. Like you said, we still need to whittle it down. But we basically do two things. We have the academy, the Podmaster Academy, where we take somebody who wants to start a podcast and put them through an online training program, and with live sessions, help them to figure out what their podcast is about, produce a first episode, a series plan, and get them up and going. And more importantly, help them get into the habit of daily or weekly podcast work, which they would do when they have a series. So the Academy is a very important part of what we do. The research falls under that. I'm planning to do, and I'm sure you've seen the concept document float by, a conference in 2 years' time from now. So the Academy is a very large aspect of our company, and it will eventually stand on its own feet and do its own thing and play an important role, not only locally, but through Africa, which is the ultimate aim. And then we are podcast producers. I always say to people that I meet, we're not podcasters. Yes, we have podcasts, but we're not full-time podcasters. We are the people that make podcasts for other people, whether it's a full-on production from A to Z, or we do the editing, or whatever aspect they need us to do, usually the editing, no? And that's where people don't always have the skills, and where you and the editors we have really sets us apart. So those are the two broad things I would say that we do. Yeah, and then the question is, what is the real value of what we do?
Yeah, so pod fading. This is kind of the big thing we preach to everybody, is that 65% of podcasts don't get past episode 6 of their show. So we guide people through the process and help them shortcut all the mistakes that most people make when they start a podcast.
Which will take a year to do, no? If you do it.
If you're super motivated and want to continue on past those mistakes. This could be from buying the wrong equipment, to having no strategy, to misunderstanding fundamentally what this medium even is, which a lot of people do. But the main thing we do really is help people achieve the goal of their podcast. So help them figure out why they're even doing this in the first place. What is the point of spending all this time and money doing this potentially complicated thing? And what do you actually want out of it? And we help them get to that point. Skipping through pod fading is a major part of that process, because it's unlikely for you to achieve the results from your podcast from just 5 or 6 episodes. But really, we help set people up for success so that when they launch, they're launching with episodes in the bank. They're not putting themselves under unnecessary pressure. They're not freaking out and releasing low-quality episodes because they think they have to, which we have seen time and time again. Where do you see this company in 5 years?
In 5 years, I will be 68. I will have a PhD behind my name. If all goes well. Which it is.
It's on track.
On track. I do see us playing a leading role in creating knowledge that is local, so that we don't depend on American statistics. You see it so often. The Americans have just come out with this thing. We're all going to do that now. But is it even relevant to our situation in South Africa and the broader African continent? I do want us to have a bursary fund and continue doing research and be at the cutting edge of podcasting and podcast development and training. On the other hand, I do see us as a big production company that is the go-to people. If you want to have a big production and you've got a proper budget and you want a really good stand on its hind legs roaring at the heavens podcast, we're the people to do that. We are connected within the industry. We know people within the podcast industry. We know people within the drama and acting and film and television industries from my history. We know technical people from your side. So we are well connected, and we can draw the best talent together to do those kind of productions. I also would love for us to have a community center somewhere, maybe in a big shopping mall where people could come and we can do live recordings, and the academy, and not necessarily a studio, but maybe smaller studios for our own in-house productions that we would do. But I want us to be really at the cutting edge of podcast development and training and information that is relevant to who we are in this continent and what we do.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Where do you see us in 5 years?
Leading production company was the first thing that came to my mind. I feel like in the next year or two, we need to have gotten a couple more very big productions under our belt. I think that's where we thrive, the kind of work we ultimately want to do, and also want to set a standard for. A large issue I have with podcasting in general is that with the barrier to entry being so low, the standard is also typically very low. I want people to think of a Baird Media production as being like the gold standard for an African podcast. We're not just doing paint by numbers. We're not just doing yet another interview podcast. We're actually doing high quality, creative, innovative content in this space. Podcasting has changed so much just since we started this company, let alone.
Still will change.
Yeah. So what that production looks like, what we even call a podcast in 5 years, that I don't know. But I know that we are going to be the ones who are then their go-to name for high-quality production.
And that, in a nutshell, is the story of Baird Media. It's only just begun. And if you want to know more about Baird Media, of course, go to our website, baird.media, and you will find everything there. Ethan, happy birthday.
Happy birthday. I love you.
I love you.